57-year-old Robert Taylor uncovers the revolting reality of Barbara Stanwyck marriage. Robert Taylor was born Spangler Arlington Brew on August 5, 1911 in Philly, Nebraska. As a youngster growing up in a small Midwestern town, Taylor demonstrated an equal measure of determination and charm that would go on to establish his career in the film business. His childhood was characterized by a dominant family background and an upbringing in Midwestern values, which instilled in him a sense of discipline and humility rare among most Hollywood legends of his time. This would manifest later in both his career and personal life, as he had a reputation for professionalism, niceness, and trustworthiness throughout his 4-decade career. Taylor's path to fame started when he relocated to Los Angeles and signed up at the University of Southern California, where he took engineering courses before realizing that acting was his calling. It was during these early years that he first gained notice for his appearance and charm, which became his signature. Taylor's early arrival on the Hollywood scene was made possible through his contract with Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, then one of the most elite studios around, which saw both his raw talent and star appeal. His early movies featured a multitude of roles ranging from romantic leads to action hero, proving himself to be incredibly versatile as a performer. Whereas most of his contemporaries were labeled with one particular archetype, Taylor's ease of movement between genres such as drama, romance, historical epics, and war films guaranteed longevity in a notoriously mercurial business. By the 1940s, Robert Taylor had solidly positioned himself as among Hollywood's most bankable and respected leading men. His performances in movies like Camille 1936, where he shared the screen with iconic Greta Garbo, and Waterloo Bridge 1940, solidified him as a performer who could bring emotional depth to his roles along with commanding screen presence. His acting was marked by naturalistic technique that shunned melodrama so that people could identify with his characters on a very human level. Taylor's skill in portraying vulnerability, moral toughness, and inner intensity set him apart from other leading men of the era and helped make him a lasting icon. Additionally, his partnerships with legendary directors and actors of the golden age of Hollywood spoke to both his professional stature and his commitment to always pushing himself with varied and challenging roles. As the movie industry continued to shift, Taylor proved to have a remarkable ability to reinvent himself. Moving from romantic hero roles in the 1930s and 1940s to more serious ones in the historical epics and suspense thrillers of the 1950s, he demonstrated that his talent was not limited by age or type. Successful films like Quo Vadis 1951 and Ivanhoe 1952 demonstrated his skills in depicting heroic characters with dignity, while productions like The House of the Seven Hawks 1959 illustrated his flexibility to adapt to changing film styles. Although television dominated the industry as well, Taylor was able to make this transition as well, taking advantage of new formats for entertainment without sacrificing the level of quality that had become established in film. With whom she had dated steadily for 3 years, Robert Taylor, with the renowned actress Barbara Stanwyck, on May 14, 1939, in an intimate but sophisticated wedding ceremony performed in San Diego, California. Their marriage garnered significant coverage from both the Hollywood media and the public, since both Taylor and Stanwyck were well-established stars at the height of their popularity, respected for their ability, on-screen presence, and glamorous images. The ceremony itself was a blend of Hollywood glamour and private familiarity, with a limited group of close friends and intimates present. Among the most distinguished was Marian Marks, wife of comedian Zeppo Marx of the legendary Marx Brothers, who served proudly as Stanwyck's matron of honor. Her presence lent an air of Hollywood-esque camaraderie to the proceedings, underscoring the tightly knit web of friendships and alliances that characterized the film business at that period. The best man on Taylor's behalf was Buck Mack, a vaudevillian who had been a close friend, advisor, and personal assistant to Stanwyck for many years. Mack was also part of the family, having married Stanwyck's sister, Millie, and thus becoming a sort of surrogate father to Barbara, and emphasizing the value of trust and loyalty on this historic day. Although they may have looked like one of Hollywood's golden couples, the union of Taylor and Stanwyck was not without its intrigues. Their marriage survived for almost 12 years, during which they attempted to mesh their high-pressure careers with their private lives. Life in the Hollywood glare of publicity columnists tended to put pressures on their marriage. Their home was, nevertheless, shared with Anthony Tony Dion, Stanwyck's son from her previous marriage to actor Frank Fay. Tony was very much a part of their lives during the marriage, and Taylor embraced his role as stepfather, providing guidance and support in the midst of a household dominated by film schedules and public expectations. However, the couple's relationship eventually unraveled, and after years of strain and separation, Stanwyck filed for divorce in February 1951, ending one of the most discussed marriages in Hollywood of that era. Following the divorce, custody of Tony was given to Stanwyck, solidifying her intense maternal relationship with her adopted son. Within a year of his own divorce, Taylor became involved again. It was 1952, and he was introduced to the breathtakingly lovely German film actress Ursula Thiess, who had emigrated to America after establishing herself in European cinema. She was continually referred to as having both elegance and a natural warmth, and was thought by many to be among the most lovely women to ever come to Hollywood from overseas. Taylor and Thiess had an instant rapport brought together by both personal chemistry and also an implicit understanding of the stresses of a public life. Following 2 years of courting, they wed on May 23, 1954, amidst the scenic beauty of Jackson Hole, Wyoming, a setting that manifested Taylor's passion for the outdoors and the couple's desire for a wedding free from the Hollywood spotlight. Their union was universally perceived to be a happy one, being characterized by true affection, stability, and the bliss of raising a family as one unit. Taylor and Thiess had 2 children together, a son named Terrence, born in 1955, and a daughter named Tessa, born in 1959. Taylor loved fatherhood, frequently discussing the great joy his children brought him and loving the quiet times off the film set when he could simply be a loving husband and father. Aside from Taylor's own 2 children, Taylor became the stepfather to Ursula's 2 children from a former marriage, Manuela and Michael Thiess. To all evidence, Taylor accepted this role in earnest, trying his best to give them stability and guidance as they adapted to a new life in America. The mixed marriage, as challenging as it was, produced a home life that was characteristic of Taylor's strong devotion to the people he cared about. But there was tragedy to befall the family in tragic form. On May 26, 1969, weeks before Taylor himself would succumb to his fight with lung cancer, Ursula found the dead body of her son, Michael Thiess, in a West Los Angeles motel room. Michael, who had wrestled with personal demons for most of his life, died of a drug overdose, shortening a life that had been troubled and unstable. The tragedy was exacerbated by the fact that Michael had only just been released from a mental hospital where he had stayed while trying to overcome his demons. Michael's issues had been long-standing. As early as 1964, he had been committed to a reformatory following an extremely disturbing episode in which he had tried to poison his father with insecticide. These difficulties presented a portrait of a young man caught in loops of suffering and uncertainty which brought grief not just to his mother but to Taylor, too, who had made an effort to act as a formative influence upon his stepson's life. The death of Michael, so soon after Taylor's own death, imposed yet another sadness on the last act of Robert Taylor's life. Now a grizzled, old Hollywood pro at 57, silver-haired but still devastatingly handsome, Robert Taylor stunned many fans when he decided to talk openly about his stormy and complicated marriage to Barbara Stanwyck. For several years, the two were Hollywood's glamour couple, their images featured on the covers of movie mags and newspapers and presenting a fantasy of romance. Yet, as Taylor now recalled it, his memory was not tinged with the golden hues of nostalgia. Rather, he presented an image of an imperfect union, describing it as occasionally emotionally claustrophobic and profoundly disturbing. Everyone assumed Barbara and I had the dream marriage, Taylor admitted, his voice low and nearly tired. But the reality was, it wasn't all love and roses. It was something else entirely, something a whole lot uglier. Taylor, MGM's typecast as the ideal tall, dark, and handsome leading man, had long lived under the scrutiny of the press. His union with Stanwyck in 1939 had only heightened that scrutiny. She was already an established star, a woman of great strength and independence, while he was still establishing himself in the studio system. In hindsight, Taylor conceded that this disparity created the dynamic for much of their relationship. Barbara was the bigger star when we married, he stated bluntly. She was strong, a respected woman who had learned to control her career in an iron grip. I, however, was still being shaped by MGM, and that distinction it carried over into our marriage in ways outsiders could never imagine. He continued to explain the home life of their marriage as less than idyllic, and while the public witnessed smooth Hollywood parties, immaculate stage photos, and radiant interviews, Taylor intimated that their personal life frequently delved into a world that was, as he put it, disgusting. Behind closed doors, we weren't Robert Taylor and Barbara Stanwyck, Hollywood's golden couple, he disclosed. We were two people who often couldn't stand each other. There were fights, sometimes over the smallest things. She could cut you down with words sharper than any knife. I'd retreat, sulk, sometimes disappear just to keep my sanity. That's not love. That's survival. Perhaps the most stunning aspect of Taylor's disclosures was his assertion that the marriage was sometimes more of a studio setup than a true romance. MGM, concerned about maintaining the reputation of its star, had urged Taylor into respectability by finding him a match with Stanwyck, a woman who inspired respect for her professionalism and self-control. It wasn't all my decision, Taylor confessed. The studio enjoyed the notion of me and Barbara. It was good for publicity, for appearance's sake. I won't say that there wasn't fascination. There was. Love. However, love is something more liberated. I never felt liberated in that marriage. According to his own testimony, Stanwyck's forceful personality would frequently make Taylor feel overpowered. She was older than him, smarter in the ways of the business, and infamous for her tough approach to work and life. Taylor had memories of times when he felt like her protege, or even employee rather than her husband. Barbara wanted control, he said bluntly, in my career, in my home, in our marriage. I was supposed to keep up to maintain the image, and I did for a while, but in my heart I was unhappy. It's sick when a marriage is more about control than love. Even with his bleak words, Taylor wouldn't write off Stanwyck's role in his life. He recognized her dedication, her commitment to work, and her refusal to compromise her values. But the warmth one might have anticipated from a husband remembering an enormous love was not there. Rather, his thoughts were colored by regret and bitterness, implying that the years he spent in that marriage had deprived him of personal happiness. I don't hate her, he explained. I never disliked Barbara. But I disliked the way we lived together. It was such a case of living in an elegant house and feeling chilly inside. Regardless of how nice the furniture or how beautiful the backdrop, it never felt like home. 57-year-old Robert Taylor's confession about Barbara Stanwyck shocked not only fans, but also destroyed one of Hollywood's most elaborately maintained illusions. His words told the unvarnished, unglamorous truth about a marriage that for decades had been sold to the world as the one everyone wished for. What was left was the